All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. My name is Walter, and I'm going to be presenting a workshop about dealing with conflict. And this applies to not only high school students, but it applies to wherever you're going to be in 10, 20 years in your professional careers, even if you go on to secondary school or vocational school or anything like that. So my first slide is going to be about stresses. And I think this is a very vital aspect that everybody needs to take into consideration because it affects the way that people interact with each other in general. And high schoolers, I find, never, they have a lot of these things pressuring on them. The first thing that I want to go over is family. Because since most of you, if not all of you, still live with your immediate family, this is one of the things that has a very significant impact on your stress level, as well as school, work, if any of you work. And it can definitely impact your self-esteem and peer pressure. So, um, the first exercise on your uh, on the handout would be what stresses you out, and I just want you all to take 5 minutes to kind of write out some of the things that stress you out. And this doesn't have to be things that I've mentioned here. It can be other things, such as like your uh, things that you think about that might stress you out, how other people view you, things like peer pressure. All right, and when you're all done, just go ahead and put your pens down and kind of signal to me. All right, so does anybody want to volunteer some of the things that stress them out? Go ahead.
Um, I wrote football practice and girls, trying to be popular, my dad, and homework.
All right, so yeah, that's definitely some of the most common things that high schoolers experience. And a lot of that is actually going to translate into your later life as well. And the reason why I went over these stresses is because when people engage in conflict, some of this stuff comes out in the way that they communicate. So, they don't think about their family or school or work, but when they engage in conflict, a lot of this stuff has an impact on the way that they communicate. So, go ahead and go into the next slide here. This is a slide about the family units. Um, I just want to, I'll go ahead and use myself as an example in evaluating my lifestyle. My lifestyle is very active. I tend to, I go to school, I go to work, and, I live on my own. I manage my own finances and things like that. Um, but one of the ways that I try to stay on top of everything that I need to do is I create a healthy environment. And the most important thing to do is focus on yourself. So even though you have all these other stressors coming in and affecting the way that you communicate with others, it's always important to take care of yourself first, and then take care of whoever else you need to take care of. Because if you don't take care of yourself, then and you break, and I've seen people break before, and it's not pretty. But take care of yourself first, and then you can go ahead and take care of whoever else is important to you in your life. And the way that you do this is by changing one habit at a time. If, for example, if you're trying to lose weight, right? You don't just go to the gym and then all of a sudden, try to run 10 miles and, do 10,000 push-ups, 10,000 pull-ups and whatnot. You want to do one rep at a time, go to the gym, do a little bit here and there, and then slowly improve as your workouts change. And the next one is about school. So some of the things that you guys go through, um, especially in high school, is that you have 5 to 6 classes a day, and some of you play sports, some of you have extracurricular activities, and of course, you have friends. Um, I was not fortunate to have as many friends as I thought I would, but that's just the way it goes. So, school is definitely one of the most stressful things that you guys are probably going through right now. Um, if you have, classes daily, sports, and extracurricular, and even I had, night class at a local community college, and that was the worst because I had, 6 classes, and I went to, sports practice, and then I had night class, and then I would come home and I'd have to study with all my extra spare time, and sometimes I didn't get that much rest. Um, so that's one of the ways that school has probably affected you, if not. Work. If any of you are working at this point, I highly suggest taking it lightly. For the most part, high schoolers generally don't work. Um, but if you do, take it lightly. Like, for example, I have a friend back in high school who was helping out his family business. And this was one of the things that stressed him out a lot because, if, the restaurant didn't uh, have many customers one night, then, sometimes he didn't have money, for other things that he needed to do. Time management is very important. And this is a concept that you're going to be using throughout your entire life. Get a lot of sleep. And again, I just want to reiterate, focus on yourself. This slide is about boosting your self-esteem. This is one of the things that has a very significant impact on the way you communicate and the way you engage in conflict. So the first, if you go to your next worksheet that I've handed out to you, I just want you to answer this basic question. What is self-esteem to you? What does it mean to you? And you might not know the textbook definition, and that's fine. I just want you to write down some of the things that you can associate with self-esteem. And once you've done that, I want you to write down some of the strengths and weaknesses that you have, and some of your likes and dislikes.
Likes and dislikes of general.
Yeah, so, just in general, some of the things that you like and some of the things that you dislike. And this can be activities, food, anything like that. But primarily try to focus on activities. When you're done, just put your pens down. Well done. All right. So the purpose of this exercise is to bring out primarily your strengths. And if the next slide. This was the whole point of the exercise, and I just wanted everybody to focus on their strengths. And I know a lot of you have, weaknesses and your dislikes, but the way that a lot of people succeed in life is they focus on what they do have, and this will definitely improve your self-esteem when try to choose a career, or you're trying to move ahead, and or trying to help someone else out. This is one of the things that I definitely find that will help you out. Um, Focusing on your strength and abusing it until you can show other people that you're definitely here to work, or move up in the corporate ladder. So next slide is what does all this mean? So what was the purpose of all this? This all leads back to one thing, and self-esteem has a huge impact on conflict, as well as school, family, and work, and the way we deal with it. So the next part of my presentation is going to be dealing with conflict. And on this next piece of paper, I want you to write down what your most recent conflict was, how you dealt with it, and how did it end. And this is going to be a quick one, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be your most recent conflict. It can be one that happened to you in the past as well. Again, when you're done, go ahead and just put your pens down. All right, does anybody want to volunteer? Okay, all right, never mind. Oh, you want to volunteer?
I had an argument with someone on my cross country team, and I put them in their place. I let them know that I'm the captain, and I run the show.
All right, so that's definitely one way to deal with conflict. Definitely a more aggressive way of dealing with issues. And typically they can go either way. Some people accept it for the way it is, and some people they take it bad. But for the most part, there's many ways to deal with conflict. So the method that I want to go over today, and this is the core of my presentation, is the STLC method of dealing with or engaging in conflicts. And that stands for stop, think, listen, and communicate. So the first method would be to stop. So when somebody is trying to engage you in conflict, the first thing you want to do is analyze the situation. Don't jump to conclusions, don't take anything personally, and in general, just take things with a grain of salt, right? You don't want to, just give out a quick response to whatever, even though you might be emotionally invested in the situation. You just don't want to, quickly just throw everything at them, because, later on, what happens to me is generally when I used to do that, I had regrets, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or, I feel so bad about, cussing this guy out because I didn't really mean to. I should have stopped first and then thought about it. Which brings me to my next slide. After you stop, think quickly about the conflict. Now, you can't stop in the middle of a conflict and then just, not reply at all. That would be and in some instances that might be useful, but for the most part, you want to think about what's going on in the conflict. So you want to put yourself in their shoes and then think about what they're saying, and maybe you want to accept what they're saying as true. So if they were, if someone is pouring out their feelings to you, you want to make sure that you respect it, right? Don't just, have like these repeat arguments in your head. Like, for example, if you were arguing with your parents and you know what they're going to say next, try to think about what they're saying and um, try to take it seriously. Think about it and think about how you can make the situation better. And the last point about thinking is was the conflict over something that had an easy answer? Now, this is something that a lot of people generally don't think about, but a lot of conflicts start over small things, especially when you're emotionally invested with someone. Like if you're, for example, my mom and I, we've had a lot of conflicts in the past, and some of them over very small things. For example, one day I had to walk home, or one day I had a orthodontist appointment after school, and she didn't come pick me up, and I got so mad over that because I missed practice, and it was over something small like that, but I didn't talk to her for like 3 days, so it's things like that. It had an easy answer to it, right? Just let it go. You missed practice one day, whatever. You can work out during the time that you missed it. And so the next part of the STLC is listen. So I kind of went over this in the last one, but listen to what the other person has to say. And keep in mind that you might not always agree with what they're saying, or, inside you want to become really defensive to what they're saying and you just want to block out everything they're saying. But you need to really think about what the other person has to say, especially if, you're close to them, right? Or if you know them, or if they're your friends. Right, a lot of times, you kind of just brush off what they have to say, or you'll forget about other things. But it's always important to listen. And the last part is your delivery. What are you going to say at the end? After all of this thinking, after all of this listening, it's important to do the first 3 steps so that you can prepare what you have to say at the very end, right? Stay calm. Don't make any destructive statements. Don't say, "Oh, you're wrong," or "You did this wrong," blah, 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 blah. And of course, it also depends on who you're communicating with, right? We can be communicating with our mother, or we can be communicating with our closest friend. And the way we talk to our closest friend is totally different from the way that we talk with our, immediate family, right? We generally have a filter on the things we say inside the house. And so the last part is, my conclusion would be, a couple of things would be to monitor your stress, manage your time wisely, and this will be, again, I just want to reiterate, this is one of the most valuable skills that you'll ever have. Once you can manage your time well, allocate, 1 hour for games, allocate 2 hours for homework, and then allocate the rest of your time to sleep, then, you're good to go. And also view conflict positively if you can. Most people in general will view conflict as a negative thing, but sometimes it can help. And some conflict is good. In fact, once you get into the working world, the more conflict you have, the more problems that come up. Then that's more problems to solve. And once you solve them, generally you make a process much better and more refined. And the last part would be stop, think, listen, and communicate. And so can I have some volunteers? I just want to run a mock conflict. All right, thank you. Too. So I just want you guys. You don't have to get up, but if you could just have a quick argument about something simple, like let's say you're a captain on a sports team, and he's not, and he's trying to give out orders and something like that.
So how come all our bags are still on the bus and not at our campsite?
'Cause you didn't take him off the bus.
But you're the freshman. You're supposed to be the one that carries them. Why don't you do that?
Just because I'm a freshman don't mean I have to take all the bags off the bus.
Well, that's the tradition of our high school team.
No. Well, I'm a freshman. I'm new. I'm changing tradition.
All right, so that's a perfect example of a conflict that high schoolers might go through, right? So the first thing to do would be to stop, and I kind of saw you guys kind of take that into consideration. Stop and think about the conflict, right? Eventually, after you mentioned that freshmen have to take freshmen are given this this painful task of taking their bags off the bus and bringing them to the campsite. He voiced his feelings about just because he's a freshman doesn't mean that he has to do stuff like that, right? And the last part would be how would you deal with it, right? So if we went back, how would there be a better way to deal with a conflict like this, right? Maybe you offered, oh, okay, I'll do it with you, but some of the freshmen have to go help me out, right? Or you bring some of the other seniors with you, some of the upperclassmen, and show them how to do it first, and then maybe when they grow older, they'll do the same thing. Okay, first couple of times I'll show you how to do it, or you as the captain, maybe you just do it all the time, and then the entire team helps, right? So that's one of the ways that I would have dealt with it. Is there a different way you would have dealt with it?
Maybe I could have helped him bring the bags and gather all the team to help move the bags with us.
Well, there you go, right?
Or I was gonna say, as the freshman, I could have stopped, thought, and listened to what he had to say, and maybe because he was the captain, I'm going to have to be with him for a while. I could have been more understanding to his situation and the rules of the high school, so that I don't create problems for the team later.
Well, there's one thought, right? And that's definitely something to take into consideration. When you get into the working world and you have a boss, someone who's higher than you, generally you're going to treat them differently, right? Because they're in charge and they're the ones who are supposed to make the calls, right? In high school, it's much less. The power division is not necessarily given to the oldest people, but I would say it's given to the wisest, right? And generally everybody thinks that juniors and seniors are the wisest. It's not always true, and once you get to once you graduate, you'll see that like, oh, they're all in the same pool. Oh, I was once in this position, and I was really amateur at the time. And well, thank you again for all of your participation. The last part would be my sources. If you guys want to take a look at that, that's fine as well. And I think that concludes our presentation for today. Thank you.